Good morning, everyone, and thank you for your time today. My name is Alonso Parada. I'll be presenting the Top Industries Overtime Analytics case study. The purpose of this work was to use real employee data to help leadership make smarter, safer decisions on workforce planning as the company is preparing for growth. For today's agenda, we'll start with the case background so everyone understands the business problem. Then we'll go through the data overview, tools and methods, the NIME workflow, the logistics regression results, and performance validation. After that, I'll walk through Site A's results, Site B's prediction, visual insights, and finally, I'll close with recommendations and future model improvements. Top Industries already monitors employee sentiment annually, which gives leadership strong visibility into job satisfaction and workplace conditions. However, overtime had not been historically tracked. That created a blind spot once expansion planning began. With new workload increases coming, leadership needed a way to prepare the workforce without guessing or risking burnout. To solve that, I used Site A's real overtime behavior to train a logistic regression model so future staffing decisions could be made based on real data instead of assumptions. This model is built on 4 core variables. First, job satisfaction, as it shows how employees feel about their daily work. Second, manager satisfaction, as it reflects how employees feel about their leadership support. Third, organizational identification, as it measures how connected employees feel to the company. And finally, overtime is captured as a simple yes or no based on actual behavior. The model was trained using 200 employees from Site A. Then we applied the model to 30 employees from Site B to test the predictive strength. I built the analysis using NIME Analytics platform because it provides a full visual workflow that leadership can easily follow. We used logistics regression because the outcome is binary, overtime worked or not. The workflow was built with a strong focus on responsible data handling. No individual employees were targeted, and the results were designed to support strategy rather than make isolated judgments. On the screen is the NIME workflow used for the study. I started by importing data from Excel. Then I performed data partitioning. The logistics regression model was trained. Predictions and scorings were performed. And finally, visual outputs like bar charts and histograms were generated. This structure makes the entire process traceable and defensible. I tested several trained test splits before settling on a 60-40 split. With a dataset of 200 employees, this ratio gave us the best balance between learning and validation. The model performed more consistently with this split, giving it enough data to learn real patterns while keeping a large enough test group to realistically evaluate performance. For a mid-sized human behavior dataset like this, 60-40 provided the most stable and trustworthy results. What becomes clear here is that all of the predictors show a positive relationship with overtime participation. As job satisfaction increases, as manager relationships improve, and as organizational identification strengthens, the likelihood of employees volunteering for overtime increases. Organizational identification stands out as the strongest predictor, which tells us that employees who feel more connected to the organization are more willing to support operational needs. At the same time, some statistical instability appeared in the coefficients due to quasi-separation within the dataset. This typically happens when certain variables almost perfectly separate outcomes in smaller datasets. Even with this limitation, the directional trend remains strong and provides practical guidance to leadership planning. When we look at Site A's prediction results, you can see the distribution of predicted yes and no overtime outcomes. These results were fairly balanced, which is a strong indicator that the model is not biased toward a single outcome. What adds more value here are the probability scores. Instead of simply labeling employees as yes or no, the model assigns confidence levels to each prediction. That allows leadership to understand not just what the model predicts, but how strongly it believes in each prediction. These results also gave us the foundation for validating the model, since Site A included real historical overtime behavior. What stands out when we look at the lift chart is how well the model separates employees who are more likely to work overtime from those who are less likely. The purpose of this chart is to compare the model's performance against random guessing. Higher lift values indicate stronger performance. In this case, the model consistently performs above baseline, which tells us it is adding real decision-making value. Even with some statistical limitations in the data set, the lift chart confirms that the model provides useful, reliable separation that leadership can depend on for workforce planning. By reviewing this breakdown, leadership can clearly see how the model performs in terms of accuracy. The confusion matrix shows true positives, true negatives, false positives, and false negatives. This level of detail matters because it makes the model transparent, rather than simply reporting a single accuracy number. This shows where the model performs well and where it makes mistakes. That transparency allows leadership to use the model responsibly, understanding both its strength and limitations when making staffing decisions. Once the model proved reliable using Site A data, it was applied to Site B employees. This step allowed leadership to forecast willingness to work overtime and transfer before new operations are launched, instead of reacting after staffing shortages appear. This gives leadership a proactive view of staffing feasibility. With these predictions, decision makers can better plan hiring, training, and scheduling to avoid burnout and reduce operational risk. When we analyze these averages side by side, a consistent pattern starts to emerge. Employees predicted to accept overtime tend to show slightly higher job satisfaction, stronger manager relationships, and deeper organizational connection. While the differences are not extreme, they are consistent. In workforce planning, trends like this are important because even small improvements in satisfaction and leadership support can translate into measurable operational flexibility. Looking at how these probability bars are distributed gives us insight into the model's confidence. The clearer the separation between the bars, the stronger the model's ability to distinguish between likely and unlikely overtime participation. Strong separations here indicate that the model is not hesitating between outcomes. That level of clarity builds confidence in the reliability of these predictions for leadership planning. At a high level, this pie chart gives leadership an immediate snapshot of workforce readiness. The visual shows the balance between employees predicted to accept overtime and those who are not. The slight lean towards one side helps highlight realistic participation levels, instead of relying on optimistic assumptions. Leadership can use this to create staffing strategies that match operational reality. My recommendations focus on leadership control factors, such as strengthening organizational identification, improving manager-employee relationships, clearly communicating overtime expectations, and targeting employees in the mid-probability range. These actions are realistic, ethical, and sustainable. The conclusion here is that the model provides meaningful insights. Visuals improve communication, And analytics helps HR plan before issues arise. To strengthen the model in the future, I recommend adding a few different variables, such as overtime availability ratings, so we understand willingness before scheduling, commute distances, which strongly impacts fatigue and flexibility, and tenure groups, since longer tenured employees often show higher loyalty and operational awareness. Thank you for your time. At this time, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.